Welcome back to the Artie Lange Show. My next guest, one of my favorite guests, blew us off last week, Mr. Big Shot. Couldn't get in here live, but I'm sure he was busy. It was a crazy week. I want to talk to him real timely. A couple of major, respected movie figures in some crazy, tragic stories. The Woody Allen situation, of course. Philip Seymour Hoffman dying. I mean, he's not just an actor, arguably the best actor of the last 30 years. And it's really, really sad. Richard Roeper. What's up, Rich?
Hey, Artie. Yeah, sorry about that Friday. You know, I had to leave New York and get back to Chicago. I was worried about the weather. And real quick, I did this event in Chicago. It was so cool. The Chicago Symphony Youth Orchestra, which is like all these 16-year-old kids who get like the perfect scores on the ACTs. Yeah. They did a whole night where they played my favorite movie music.
Really?
Live. Like awesome. Bond theme, Rocky. It was unbelievable.
Nah, I'm busting your chops. It would have been nice to have you in, that's all.
I'll be back in a few weeks. I'll come see you for sure.
No pressure, but you're one of my favorite guests. But you know, it's tragic to be talking at this time. We'll get to the Woody Allen thing in a second, but you got to lead with Philip Seymour Hoffman. Just, you know, obviously with my past and everything, everybody calls me. We're the exact same age. I didn't realize that, 46. Wow. And looking at the New York Post, his picture, it is like looking into a mirror. But, you know, thank God I'm doing well. And I never graduated to the Needles.
I didn't see the picture.
Thank God. I mean, yeah, it looks like...
There's a recent picture of him?
Yeah, it looks
so
like me.
He was in bad shape.
Looks like me.
That's the sad thing, guys, because as you know, it's like, you know, he had these demons when he was 20, 21, 22 years old, and then he was clean for 2 decades, and he fell back into this about a year ago. So
we think there's a lot of... I do a joke where I say I stopped drinking in front of people, but, you know, I hope he was clean. I hope he was clean for 2 decades, but, I mean, he certainly did work like he was clean. The guy was amazing, but I didn't realize he had demons on that level. And, again, I never graduated to needles in my life, thank God. That is another level. When I was using, you know, I never thought I snorted heroin, and that's bad enough. But to get to the point where you're that self-destructive, where you know you're literally tying yourself off and cooking it, and think about it, he had bags and bags of heroin in his apartment, and so he was a real heavy user. And there's this heroin out there now with fentanyl in it. It's laced with this drug fentanyl, and it's what they call a hot shot. The needle was still in his arm apparently because it's so poisonous. As soon as you put it in there, boom, it can kill you. It's just awful to think. And look, every great artist draws from pain. You know, and he played characters. You know what it reminds me of? The movie that, you know, not a lot of people might know, but great director, one of his last great films, Sidney Lumet, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. Yeah. A great film, but as dark as you can imagine. Albert Finney's in it, one of his great performances recently. But there's so much darkness in that movie, and Philip Seymour Hoffman does everything dark that a person can do in that movie, from adultery to murder to accidentally getting his mother killed because he had the family jewelry store robbed, and then you realize he's a heroin addict full blown, where he sees a guy who shoots him up, and you know, I guess that's where he drew from. He was amazing in that movie. Did you think of that movie when you heard about this? I mean, it's very dark the way he does the heroin. He goes to a dealer's apartment.
I have that on my list of one of his greatest performances. And I wrote a piece saying, if you haven't seen it, it's a 2007 film. And you're so right, Artie. If that had been one of Sidney Lumet's films from the 70s, it'd be being studied in film class.
You're right.
It came out at a time just when all the comic book movies were kind of taking over cinema. It was this brilliant film, but kind of overlooked. But
Ethan Hawke is amazing in it.
Everybody, Marissa Tomei. Right. But you know, he specialized. It's interesting because when you look at his early career, when he was young, in his 20s, he played a lot of snooty prep school types.
Like Talented Mr. Ripley. Yeah, right.
Sense of a Woman. He was the guy that finally kind of ratted out his friends on the witness stand. He was doing that kind of thing where he didn't want to say the name. And he was playing those. And then all of a sudden in Magnolia, he's playing this caring nurse for a dying TV producer.
Yeah.
And we saw that he could play all these other characters. But then later in his career, he played so many characters who seemed like regular guys but had huge demons. Owning Mahoney is another great film, 2003. he plays this Canadian bank clerk with a huge gambling problem who embezzles $10 million from his clients and almost gets away with it. And he played a lot of those kind of characters who kind of looked like regular guys but had these huge demons that they were dealing with.
There's a real dark part in, well, then, of course, he plays that vapid assistant in The Big Lebowski. Like, how perfect is he in that? Comedic roles. But the thing that was really dark about Before the Devil Knows You're Dead is, to me, when I watched him in the scene where he gets shot up for the first time, he goes to this really expensive apartment that a drug dealer owns in New York City, and the guy does everything for you. You pay a lot of money, so it's one-stop shopping. The guy burns it for you in the spoon and shoots you up, ties you off, shoots you up like you're in a hospital.
Yeah, and you've got a nice room of your own then, right?
Right, and then he gives you a room where you could lay down. And I could tell maybe he got high, and I didn't know at that point, because when you get high like that, you want to talk to somebody, and you make the worst, most pathetic small talk with people. And the guy shoots him up, unties him, and he's talking to the dealer, who's just like this dark guy who could care less about anybody. And he says, the sums of all the parts of my life don't add up to the right sum, and nothing makes any sense. And the dealer heard it all from junkies, I guess. And he's like, yeah, whatever, tell it to somebody else, in a real cold way. Yeah. But the way Philip Seymour Hoffman did that was exactly how a junkie would do it. It was really good, to the point where I said either he's that good of an actor or he's drawing from something.
Yeah, well, I think it's a combination. He was also one of those guys, when you look at 46, the fact that he had done 60 movies, a lot of actors at the age of 46 have done about 16 movies, because they're very picky about their roles. And he was, but he also, he'll be in the Hunger Games movies. He would do more commercial fare. He was in Along Came Polly. Then he would do stage work. He was one of those actors that, I think he was the kind of actor who would show up, and whatever the part was, he never played down to it. He's like, all right, you want me to play Ben Stiller's best friend in a slapstick comedy? I'm going to be the goofiest, funniest, balls out best friend that he's ever had in a movie.
Right. I hope he got a big paycheck for that one. I remember Along Came Polly. Oof, it was horrible. But but he.
Well, and again, he was one of those guys. If he was in a bad movie, at least you're like, okay, we're going to get something good out of him here.
But he's good in it. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was just it's interesting because it's one of those actors too. I don't know if we took him for granted. The guy won an Oscar. He was nominated, a few other times. But only now are we hearing a lot of people saying this guy's maybe the best actor of his generation, because he was never going to be a leading man.
Right.
So when people say, well, who's the best actor in their 40s, people start talking about the Johnny Depps, who's super talented, or Robert Downey Jr. But those guys have leading man looks and abilities. Yeah. And this guy was Philip Seymour Hoffman. In fact, Roger Ebert always said, when people would say, who could play you in the movie, he'd always say, I want Philip Seymour Hoffman to play me.
Yeah. Well, even in Capote, it's not just a brilliant impression. He's doing the guy. He's not doing an impression of the guy.
No.
He's doing the guy. He's acting as him, which is what he won the Oscar for. State and Maine. He's basically the lead in an ensemble in State and Maine.
Yeah. A
great little film not a lot of people know. He's amazing in that. But, Laurie Metcalf, I worked with her for 2 years from Steppenwolf on the Norm Show. And she's as good as an actress gets, Laurie. She was nice enough to play my mom in Beer League. And she always went back to theater in the summer. And she was visiting New York in between the first and second seasons of the Norm Show. And she called me up and she said, I'm going to see John Riley and Philip Seymour Hoffman in True West. They were doing True West off Broadway.
Yeah.
An amazing play. And I had seen it when I was younger. And I said, God, to see those two guys do it, I'd love to see it. So Laurie took me, and she knew both of them. So we had second row. And you want to talk about acting. It's a True West, a play about Sam Shepard, right?
Yeah, Sam
Shepard play about two brothers who couldn't be more different. It's basically about two brothers who argue and don't get along, and the mother comes in later. But they wrestle on stage, and they go through all these emotions. They cry, they argue, and I've never said, it's real acting. You think, I was on a sitcom at the time, and I think I'm an actor. No, I'm not. Those guys were actors. Philip Seymour Hoffman, at the end, he gets a standing ovation. They both do. And you could see the emotions he went through on stage. I don't know how being a performer, I don't know how you do a performance like that and not use something to get to sleep, not use something to come down. I never saw a performance of that. And Laurie took me backstage to meet both of them. And I remember he said he had another performance that night. It was the matinee, and he was going to get a steak. He said, you want to get a steak with me? And I went and I had a steak with the guy. And we ate steak and we talked a little bit. And I cherished that. But I said, you got to do that again? He goes, yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, and you mentioned Steppenwolf. I actually, I live not too far from Steppenwolf, and it's Laurie Metcalf and John Malkovich, and all these great actors come from there.
Legendary theater company in Chicago, yeah.
In Chicago, and Phil Seymour Hoffman. I don't know. He lived in Chicago for about 6 years, just because the theater scene, is so vibrant, and there's a lot of that, real hardcore stuff. And then he'd go to Broadway, Long Day's Journey into Night, Death of a Salesman. I mean, this is like...
He played Willie Loman. Like, Steve Martin tweeted that is Willie Loman, and Steve Martin, not an easy critic, said if you ever saw him do Willie Loman, it's like the Willie Loman, and you never go see it again. Like, you'll never see a guy do it better. And Dustin Hoffman did it. And to do Willie Loman and not use something to come down, to do Death of a Salesman... Again, I know I sound like weak, but just doing stupid stand-up in front of thousands of people, at the end of that performance on the road, it was hard for me to come down. Like, and True West and these plays, Long Day's Journey into Night, you're doing Eugene O'Neill. Could there be a more depressing story?
No, you're right. And look, we all know. I mean, even doing, even doing a radio show, doing anything that requires adrenaline and performance, even when you walk out of a radio studio or, after a guest spot on a TV show, and you think, even if you killed... You walk outside and you see the traffic going, and people walking, and you want to say, don't you people know what I just did?
I had that experience.
About your daily life. And Philip Seymour Hoffman, he was like that, as you mentioned, Artie, here in Chicago, because he's the kind of guy, if you put on that knit cap, he looked like your cousin or the guy that you worked with down in the docks, or a warehouse guy.
Right.
You think, is that Philip Seymour Hoffman? No, it can't be, and he did that kind of unassuming manner, too.
No, I mean, honestly, like what you just said, I had that experience almost every day at Howard. We would do a 5-hour show on the Stern Show, and it could get emotional in that studio. And, like, I would tell these insanely honest stories about my life, and I would get out to 6th Avenue, the light hits you in the face like you're coming out of a matinee in a movie, and, like, UPS guys are going, was that chick's breast real? Or did you really do that in a pig costume? And I'm, like, getting therapy from everybody on the street in Manhattan. And just walking in the days, I would walk down in the Village sometimes from 6th Avenue and 57th Street to get rid of the energy.
Yeah, how do you segue from that, though, into picking up your dry cleaning and just going about your daily routine?
It's hard.
It's like Jim Carrey's a million other people, but he told a story about his first marriage. And remember Jim Carrey had that whole story about how he was living out of his car, and, the first wife, of course, is the one that, always supports him. And he got the groceries, I think, for Ace Ventura. And it was like, honey, look at this. It's like a Saturday afternoon. She's like, great, take out the garbage. And he basically took out the garbage and never came back.
Exactly. I'm not coming back. Yeah. Well, your life changes forever. And look, I know people say, like, man up a little bit. And they're right. Like to say, it was hard to come down from, your great job working on the Stern Show or being able to do stand-up on the road and make a bunch of money. But it really was, and I'll never forget the first time I tried heroin on the road. I laid down on the pillow and I said, I'm in trouble. I said that out loud. It was after doing 3 shows at a club. Every show was sold out.
Yeah. And
like standing ovations, and you're sitting there going, I'm in trouble. And I always tell the story. How good did the heroin feel? It felt good to the point where the movie that was on the TV in my hotel room was a movie called Alex and Emma with Luke Wilson and Kate. Kate. Yeah, and I didn't get up to change the channel.
Yeah, that is a powerful testimony.
By the end, I go, oh, Alex, how could you talk like that to Emma? Oh, this is terrible. I got into the movie. That's how good the heroin was.
It's over already?
Exactly. And then it became on planes, and then you need it for your whole life. And what's really sad about the story to me is, I've been there before, if you got that many bags, he had 30 bags they found, dime bags, and used needles. This is a guy of means, doesn't need to live like that. He was in squalor because he was a slave to it. It sounds like his last years or months, he was a slave to it. And to think of how talented he was, and it's just very sad, man.
And 3 young children.
Yeah, that's the other thing. The kids,
of addiction, where he's this brilliant guy, and he certainly can intellectually grasp that this is the worst thing in the world, that he's abandoning his kids, that he's not living up to his potential as a father, as a human being. But it doesn't matter if you're in the throes of addiction. Right.
Now, yeah, I mean, again, I hate that I can relate to it, but and again, I'm not on his level talent-wise. I can relate to it on a different, smaller level. But it is hard. It doesn't get everybody, but it's sad that it gets someone this good, man. I mean, the kind of work he probably... Wouldn't you love to see him when he was 70 play a grandfather in a movie or something? We're never going to see that.
I got a tweet from somebody, the great actor Maximilian Schell died Saturday night.
Oh, really?
Oscar winner for, Judgment at Nuremberg and all that stuff. And he was, I think, 82. And first of all, he would have gotten more play in the press just because he was a great actor. But 5 hours later, we're hearing about it. Philip Seymour Hoffman. But somebody tweeted to me, look at that guy's career. Look at everything he did after 46.
Right.
And you could see Philip Seymour Hoffman having that parallel career where there are all kinds of stage roles and film roles that he wasn't even yet old enough to play that we as fans are robbed of.
Yeah. No, Brando was 48 when he did The Godfather. It's like all that stuff is like you're robbed from it. And just rest in peace. I hope he finds peace. If there's something after this, I hope he found a little peace.
Absolutely.
Go ahead,
Richard,
John.
was he working less? I mean, were there inklings in the
Not
industry
really, right?
that
I
he
don't
was
think so.
having problems?
No, and that's and that may speak to what Artie said. Hey, look, he said he didn't do anything for 20 years, and you have to take him at his word. But the truth is, even in this last year, he was doing these giant Hunger Games movies. I think he's got 3 more films coming out. So he was actually working regularly. Now, I know he's got theater companies and stuff like that. Now, those people might tell you, hey, he wasn't showing up anymore for rehearsals or he wasn't involved in the planning of our theater schedule. But as far as the film acting was going, I never heard from anybody, Philip Seymour Hoffman, I don't know if we can rely on him. He was still, knocking out 3-4 movies a year.
Yeah, the Hunger Games, a movie on that level, they're not hiring you unless they know you're all right.
Right? Yeah.
And look, maybe it was 3 days ago. That's the other thing that's sad about this story. It could have been 3 days ago he relapsed.
Yeah.
For the first time in a long time. And the thing about relapsing is you think you still have the same tolerance you had before, and you don't. And you use the same amount that you had used 6 months ago, and you don't have that tolerance anymore, and it's gone. But now, of course, everybody pays a bunch of attention to it because it just happened. But there's all these people on CNN, and CNN called me to comment on it, and I don't know. I didn't want to do that. I just felt like it's. What are you going to say? It's insanely tragic. What am I going to do? Go plug my book?
It's funny because it's like I want to talk to you anyway because we have a conversation as friends. I turned down a lot of that same stuff too because I heard from somebody. I heard you knew him. I met him 3 times.
Right.
I'm not going to be one of those film critics where you see those people from like Us Weekly talking about the inside workings of Jennifer Aniston's relationship, but I'm like, you've never met her in your life.
Well, no, yeah, right, exactly. Well, you're definitely anyone who knows you're not one of those guys. But I cherish a memory that like about 12 years ago because I worked with and knew this great actress Laurie Metcalf. In a 5-hour span, I watched him do True West with John C. Reilly, and had a steak with the guy. And you know what? That's a great thing. All right, as depressing as it gets, we're going to take a break. Can you stick around? I want to talk a little Woody Allen with you.
Sure.
Get a little more depressing. Thanks, Richard. Richard Roeper, back after this.
The Artie Lange Show, weeknights on Audience, only on DirecTV.